Welcome back to Real Takes, where we are all movie love all the time. I'm Stott, and we have been doing two things in this month of February. We've been celebrating Aquarian filmmakers and film art, and we've also been celebrating Black History Month. And I've run up against a little bit of an obstacle because there's a movie I really want to talk about. And it doesn't have an Aquarian tie-in anywhere. So here's what I'm going to do. Michael B. Jordan's birthday is this week. Happy birthday, Michael B. Jordan, Aquarius actor. Michael B. Jordan came on the scene with Fruitvale Station, directed by Ryan Coogler. They both sort of exploded into the film world with that great film that I highly recommend everyone see. And they've gone on to make several films together, including Creed and Black Panther. But Michael B. Jordan has also made Just Mercy and The Fantastic Four, among many others. He's a great actor, and we celebrate his Aquarian acting gifts. Okay, Aquarius duties checked off the box. Tonight, we are shining so much movie love on Set It Off, the 1996 film directed by F. Gary Gray, starring Queen Latifah, Jada Pinkett-Smith, Vivica Fox, and Kimberly Elise. Now, I talk a lot on this channel about quiet, independent movies that are character driven, and I use words like subtle and nuanced and quietly powerful, and Set It Off is none of those things. Set It Off is loud, and it is violent, and it is really plot heavy. There's just plot coming at you right and left. But and it's an action movie. It's a crime movie about four Black women who come up against so much hardship and come to such a place of desperation that they become bank robbers. So it's a crime movie, but it's a character-driven crime movie, or it's a dramatic crime movie. And when it came out, I felt like I hadn't seen anything like it. And it was thrilling. There was something really thrilling about it. And I think it's special, and I want everyone to see it, which is why I'm talking about it tonight. So one of the many interesting things about Set It Off is that so many movies now are writer or director driven, or a lot of the movies we've been talking about here are writer and director driven. You know, they say that TV is a producer's medium, movies are a director's medium, and theater is an actor's medium. That's sort of the old adage. I think that's shifting as television has shifted a lot in the last 20 years. But often on this show, I've been talking about director-driven projects. Either the director also writes the script, or it's the director's idea for the script. And in this case, this movie was originally the idea of a producer at New Line Cinema who had seen Thelma and Louise. This is Helena Echegoyen, saw Thelma and Louise, and she realized that it was, fundamentally an empowerment fantasy. And then she thought, who could use an empowerment fantasy more than Black women? And actually, her exact words were Black chicks. And so she took the idea to the writer Takashi Buford, and he sort of sat on it for a while and let it ruminate. And he said he was in a park one day and he saw four women hanging out, and it just struck him like they were, like the picture of them and the energy he saw around them, they were the four women that needed to be in this story about four women who rob a bank. And then they brought in Kate Lanier, who had written What's Love Got to Do with It, the biopic about Tina Turner starring Angela Bassett. And the two of them wrote the script. And then they approached F. Gary Gray to direct it. Now, F. Gary Gray had one feature film that had done pretty well called Friday, but he'd already had years of experience shooting music videos. And you really feel that energy in the film. The action sequences are shot really well. There's exciting, there's a lot of movement. He knows how to take us through a moment in a really powerful way and combine story and music and camera motion to kind of get us into whatever's happening. And he has said, there was nothing Hollywood about this movie, and that's why he liked it. The movie was made for $9 million, which is a sizable budget, but it's not a sizable budget when you need to drive SUVs through plate glass windows and have extensive car chases in the middle of LA with helicopters and 20 cop cars and car crashes and things like that. So they were making the movie on a really tight budget. But before we get to that, or circling back, I guess, the writers and the producer have talked about the fact that one of the big challenges with the film was getting us to the point where these women decide to rob a bank. And, they said, we accept in film that men rob banks. We can just drop in on Butch and Sundance robbing a bank, and we don't really ask, why are they robbing banks? But it's not the same with women. And that challenge was really part of how the film became so character driven. And it's interesting because, again, it is an action movie. There's a lot of plot, and the plot's really in your face, but it's all, situations that we're still dealing with today in this country. It's police brutality, it's, discrimination, it's economic oppression, it's, all the challenges that we're still up against today. Okay, just need to clarify here. Twice in the last minute or so, I've said challenges that we are up against, and that was a poor phrasing choice. What I meant to say was that our country is still grappling with many of the same issues being addressed in this film. I'm in no way under the impression that I am up against the same kind of discrimination or challenges that the women in this film, these Black women, are up against. And I don't want anyone to think that. And I want to be really clear that as a white woman, I know that. So I needed to come back in and just put that on the record. Okay, back to set it off. And then we have these four characters, and they each have a different story of how they kind of get to a point where their back is up against a wall and they're willing to, take matters into their own hands. And obviously I don't condone robbing banks, but it is really thrilling. Like, it is an empowerment fantasy to watch these women, like, take control of their own lives in any way. And obviously it's going to be a rough ending for some of them. I don't think that's a spoiler. I'm not giving you any details, but it doesn't end well. But we go on a ride, and they, they make a lot of interesting choices along the way. So the movie is really like loose and raw in a way that movies were in the 90s. And it's interesting because on the one hand, I think the general public consciousness, especially in the last few years, has been kind of raised around issues of race and discrimination, but we've also become a little more careful about how we approach those issues. And I feel in this movie like they just took a lot of rage and like threw it against the wall, and it's really refreshing and exciting to just drop into their stories and let the stories play out without any kind of analysis within the film of what's happening. They're just living it, and it's really refreshing. And And then the other thing that's so moving about this film is the acting. Now, Jada Pinkett-Smith and Vivica Fox were kind of the two bigger stars of the film when they were filming. They'd both been in major motion pictures. Jada Pinkett had been in Menace to Society. She'd been on TV shows. Vivica Fox had been in a handful of films. So they were kind of the two bigger stars. And it was Queen Latifah's first leading role in a major motion picture. So Queen Latifah comes from rap, and she'd put out, I think, 2 albums, and she'd been in a handful of music videos for her own work and other people's work. And she'd had bit parts in other movies and done a little bit of TV, but this was a big role for her. And everyone interviewed about the movie who was there said she just brought a focus and a dedication that, really blew them all away. And if there was any question about whether or not Queen Latifah can act, this movie puts all of that to rest. I was watching this crime action movie and I started crying watching Queen Latifah work. She's so moving. She's so present. Just puts it all out there with a lot of dedication. And one of the other things that's kind of amazing about this film is, one character's a single mother, one character's lost her parents and she's taking care of her younger brother, one character had gotten a good job and then, because of discrimination, that falls apart. And then Queen Latifah's character is a butch lesbian with a girlfriend. And it's never like, there's no, how do the friends feel about that? Or like, what do we all think about her being gay? And I can tell you, in 1996, to just have that character at the center of a film was really unusual and really brave. And, the producer and the writers have said, and the director have said, they kind of don't understand how the film got made. There were so many red flags, 4 Black women getting involved in armed robbery of major banks, one of them an out lesbian. It was not really something that had been seen before. We'd had Thelma and Louise, and then Waiting to Exhale had happened the year before this film with about 4 Black women. It's a totally different setting. They're mostly middle class to upper class, and it's about love and relationships, which is great, but this was not that movie. This was about 4 poor Black women who are faced with a lot of challenges of survival. And, there was just so much that hadn't been seen before. And everyone involved was sort of I can't believe this movie got made. And Jada Pinkett-Smith, I saw a recent interview with her where she said, the unfortunate thing is that the studio assumed only Black people would want to see this movie. And so it was only advertised in urban areas. Code, where Black people might be. And she hopes that now, if this movie came out, it would be marketed nationally. We're in such a different time culturally. It's hard to imagine how that movie would feel. And in fact, I read some pieces online where I guess there have been talks about a remake, and there are people no, do not remake this movie. It was a moment in time. It can never happen again like this. We need to let it be the little gem that it is from 1996 and come up with some other story. So lots of love for Set It Off. I just want to point out, I'll put a link in the discussion below. I got a lot of my information for this video from a little documentary about the making of the film called Setting It Straight. I'll put the link for that. And there's also a nice article about, the relevance Set It Off has for Black feminism. And I'll also put that in the discussions. But this is a fun ride. You can take it as just a fun... This is a fun ride. You can take... Okay, so I'm not in love with how I wrapped this up. This is definitely a high octane action movie. And so there's a a high energy about it. And I also get really jazzed by this story because of the empowerment fantasy element of it and the thrill of watching these women who have been so beaten down by racism and economic oppression sort of taking matters into their own hands. But the truth is, the film's also a tragedy, and it's got a very real heart that and I say this as a white woman who doesn't know this experience directly, but what it feels like to me is that it holds like a pain and rage about these women's experience, and it throws that out at us in a really intense way. And it manages to be a story that is basically unrealistic and yet touches on so much that is real. And so yeah, I needed to come in and get away from the idea that it's a fun ride, because it's so much more than that. And I really dig it. Set it off. Please go watch it. If you've seen it, let me know what you think in the comments. And if you haven't seen it, please go watch it and then let me know what you think in the comments. And I will see you next Wednesday. Thanks for watching Real Takes. Hit the subscribe button below so the algorithms will tell you when new episodes are out. And if you want to support Real Takes, please visit my Patreon page where you can join at any tier from $2 to $100 per thing I make. The $15 tier is specifically about supporting Real Takes, and you'll get behind the scenes information and be thanked in future videos. See you next Wednesday.